Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lifestyle Show podcast. Today, I have on with me Tori Warren, and I want to let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. As Nick said, I'm Tori. I have a wellness website. It's toriwarren.com. And Nick invited me here on his podcast. I guess we're going to talk about some health and wellness.
Yeah, of course. So, first, tell me your story. Tell me everything about you that you feel is very important.
So, I'm 26. I live in Cleveland. I started this wellness journey about 2 years ago. And then I also have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And that's kind of what sparked my interest in wellness and mental health and everything. And then at one point I was going through just like a really hard time in my life, depression and like a bad breakup and stuff. And I've always been someone who's just very, I just need to know why. Like I'm always like trying to figure out, okay, well, why does this person act this way? And like, why am I like this? And like, what's wrong with me? And what's wrong with this? And blah, blah, blah. And so as I'm just collecting and gathering all this information and everything, I think I just was like, I'm learning so much. I gather so much information and I want to be able to share this with everyone, because I think we all go through such similar things. However, when we go through it, we always feel so alone and like no one understands us. So, if I can create clarity for people in a community, then I'm all for it.
Interesting. So, when you say you want to find out why, is it more of like you want to figure out why your friends do specific things, or you want to figure out more of like the grand scheme of why, like why am I here, or things like that?
So, when I say why, I think that like I want to have clarity around myself, self-awareness, and then use that to understand other people as well. Because I think, a lot of problems we have and issues that in regards to healing, it's that disconnection of just, not feeling like we have clarity around our lives and around our relationships and within ourselves. So
That's awesome. No, I do like it. And I know that you're very big into like mindfulness and spirituality. So do you find that that is sort of your outlet to sort of, get rid of all your bad feelings and things of that sort?
yes, spirituality is definitely number one for me in that. And then, what follows is just me doing other things that help myself, such as my relationships and doing what I'm doing now with the wellness and everything. That helps me a lot.
So take me in deeper, right? So why do you, first of all, when did you develop this sort of spirituality? What faith are you? And why exactly do you feel like other people should develop a sort of spirituality that we don't really see today?
So I grew up Christian, but when I got to college, that's kind of when I built my own spiritual path. You get away from your family and then like you start to just question the world naturally, you know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm Christian anymore, just more so spiritual as a whole, because I've adopted several other practices. I believe in chakras and meditation. Like sometimes you don't have to like be in full prayer. You can meditate or just go in nature. Like there's so many different things. So yeah, I think, what was your exact question? I think I got off course.
So why do you believe that it's important for people to actually have spirituality?
Gotcha. That was the second part. So I think it's really important because that's how we connect to our higher self. And I mean, everyone might not believe in God per se, but even if you are just a person who doesn't, and you just believe in like intuition and taking guidance from the universe or anything like that, that's where we're going to get our messages from on how to move and like be in alignment with our purpose and our path, and everything is through spirituality.
Interesting. So do you sort of believe, and this is something that, I'm kind of like iffy on, and I've never really come to like a conclusive answer. There's a question of like, where do our ideas come from, right? They could come from, just some random, some psychologists would tell you it's like our unconscious part of our brain, our subconscious, and others would tell you that it comes from God and spirituality and things like that. So do you believe that our ideas sort of stem from this, God-like figure, or is it more of just something that randomly pops up?
I do think that they're connected. You know, when we have ideas, I think that it is connected to um, our higher self or God. Because for me, it's all one, it's all the same. You know,
Mhm.
whether you want to call it something God or call it just intuition, you're having those urges for a reason. No, you have this idea and it keeps popping up in your head. That's a sign to go for it. However
Yeah.
way you want to look at it, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I think just like spirituality in a sense of getting connected with those urges within yourself is honestly more than enough for a lot of people.
I thought there was something really interesting the other day. Elon Musk posted on his Twitter, and it was like one of the more popular posts that he's ever had. He posted, he goes, "You don't have a soul, you are a soul." And
I love that.
I love that too, right? I thought about that. I was like, that kind of makes sense, right? Because the thing that we call, you could call it consciousness, you could call it your soul, you could call it your spirit,
Call it
but
what you want.
whatever it, yeah, exactly, right? Like you say that you're one person, and that's really the goal, isn't it? Right? To be sort of integrated in your entire self and to sort of come together in that sort of spirituality type mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really do like that. So I am wondering, why should somebody who's listening to this, why should they actually develop spirituality in their life? Or what is it like in a life without spirituality, and how does spirituality help that?
A life without spirituality, I think it feels lost. And I'm just speaking for myself. Whenever I feel very foggy, disconnected, and just confused in my life in general, um, that is a disconnection with myself. That's exactly where that's coming from. So I think it's just extremely important because you really can't be in that oneness without, really going within and being in tune with yourself. So I mean, I think it's just so important, you know.
Yeah. So what do you do in your daily life that actually allows you to embrace that sort of spirituality? Is it prayer? Is it just mindfulness? Is it any sort of religious practice?
I do pray morning and night. Um, I meditate in the morning too for at least 5 minutes,
Hmm.
sometimes more. Days when I'm feeling especially overwhelmed, I will go take a walk or just go sit in a bench outside. Being outside is huge. Just being around nature or being in the sun, the vitamin D helps us literally, mentally. Um, I also journal a lot. And that's about it for me. I mean,
So,
on a daily, that's it. I
yeah.
mean, I go to yoga, I do other things, but I think anything where you feel connected to yourself and where you can take your mind off of everything and just like focus on one thing, that is still a spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be prayer. You know what I mean? So if for someone
Yeah.
that's literally like tennis and they're just like focused in and they're like really just like feeling in tune with themselves and their body and they can feel everything and it makes them happy, that's enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was actually just on call with a hypnotist, actually, right?
Ooh.
His name's James Malone, and you could find his, um, you could find the video that I have with him. I'll post it right here. But I was talking to him, and he described hypnosis in the same way, actually. He says, when you think of hypnosis, you normally think of it as, I could make you bark like a dog or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, but his type of hypnosis, his is based off helping people in their daily lives, right? So let's say you're struggling with smoking or overeating or things like that, and you want to help yourself. He takes you through a hypnosis process, which is very similar to mindfulness, where you literally just bring yourself in a sense of oneness, and you sort of get connected with yourself, and you come to a realization of, this is why I want to quit. This is how I feel right now as a smoker. I don't feel the way that I want to feel. And to get to this place, I need to be in this sort of mindfulness slash hypnosis state. So a big conversation that we had that I thought was really interesting. And I'd want to share this with you. Do you
Yeah,
think that in our society we don't do a great job at confronting our own feelings? And do you feel like we sort of run away from our feelings whenever we see a distraction?
100%. I think
Mm,
that's honestly just human nature because our feelings don't feel good. I mean, just innately, we don't want to do things that don't feel good. We want to
mhm,
go to what feels good. So yeah, I definitely think it's a huge problem. And in today's world, we have a distraction literally at every turn. We have our
it's true.
phones. We can literally do anything we want. So it's even worse in our day and age. Um, yeah, 100%.
So so what would you think? Because I mean, I completely agree. I think there's one thing that really gets me. It's if you were to articulate to somebody why they shouldn't do that, why they should, instead of running away from their problems, and by running away, I don't mean physically running away, I mean mentally running away and saying, you know what, I don't have the ability to handle this right now. How could you tell somebody, or what would be your reasoning for somebody to actually confront their feelings and, come together and understand how they're feeling in that present moment?
The reason is because even if you run away from it, it's actually not going anywhere. It'll be
Mm,
back when you get done procrastinating, or it'll just build up and you'll and just come out in other ways, whether that is literally like your body deteriorating or you blowing up one day on someone and just like being really angry or sad, depression, like it comes out. If you don't deal with it head on, it just oozes out in other ways. So I would say that's the reason. And also, I mean, I think people have to look at problems differently or their emotions differently, because it's really the feeling that causes people to flee because they don't want to feel things.
yeah.
But as I always say, there's no such thing as a negative emotion. Your emotions are just messages like, okay, why are you sad? There's a reason, and your body's trying to tell you something, and then you can deal with it. And I mean, you may still be sad, but at the end of the day, there's a lesson here. So I think if everyone could just see emotions as neutral and as helpers, then they won't feel as bad about it.
Yeah, I think something that's really interesting about mindfulness is that people the people who do mindfulness and the experts, they actually encourage you to be curious instead of reacting. So, the first imagine in a biological sense, you're in the woods and you hear a sound. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to panic, right? Because you're like, "Oh, this could be an animal, this could kill me," right?
Yeah,
Anything like that. But then once you realize that it's not something to be threatened by, and it's something that, it's not an animal, maybe it's just, rustling in the leaves or whatever. The next natural reaction that we have is actually to be curious, to be like, what was that? So that the next time that I experience this, I don't have to go through this fear again, right? Maybe the next time I hear rustling in the woods, then, or this exact rustling in the woods, then I know that it's not going to be a bear
that's
trying
a
to
good
take me
point.
down. So I think it's super interesting how in mindfulness, they tell you, when you experience stress, for example, in your daily life, the first reaction is to panic. It's the same thing, right? You experience this panic sense, and mindfulness essentially tells you to go to the next step. It essentially tells you to calm down, stop worrying, and move on to the next step. And I think that's a great part of not being able to distract yourself. Because if you distract yourself a little bit, then you're still going to act in that panic state and you never move on to the next stage.
Yeah, I think so. I agree 100%. And I like the way you put it about the you hear the noise in the woods, and then like
Mhm.
if you hear the same one again, then you know it's like not that bad. So yeah, doing it, just try it once. It's never going to be that bad again. A lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially with stress, because for stress and anxiety, our culture is pretty riddled with that. And I think the best thing to do about it, honestly, is to realize that there's really no use in being stressed out, right? Like, what's the benefit of being stressed out? You think worse,
Mhm.
your body starts, using its resources so much quicker than you expect it to, and you start getting tired. You end up going on, like, a high and a low, and also, you start feeling pretty awful. So I think so many people try to, you know, they get stressed, but they don't realize that it's not even useful to be stressed at all.
Yeah, It's not useful. And I think people don't know how to not be stressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. People don't really know how to confront it. That's the big problem, and I
Right.
think that's something that, you know, we could discuss on this, and it's, when you experience stress, I think the first reaction is to go to one of those distractors because it's so easy, right? Oh, I'm stressed, let me drink, right? Like it could take you right out of that mind state so quickly. But I think mindfulness is such a great way to get out of that stressful state and at the same time, be within yourself and to completely understand yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I guess the issue there is that the drinking is quicker sometimes until like you really get the hang of it. But I 100%, it's way better of a way. And at that point, you're actually dealing with it, dealing with the stress. So,
Yeah. I think so. When you actually get like getting back to spirituality and things like that, do you feel that when you're stressed, the a great way to actually deal with that is through a sort of spiritual sense by sort of saying to yourself, this is all like God's doing and there's all a plan that's here, or do you think that God is sort of detached from that and it's not as useful?
I don't think that he's causing stress. I mean, that's me.
Mhm.
I'm causing my stress.
Yeah,
So, um, if I feel stressed, I may pray about like whatever it is that's bothering me, but ultimately, I know it's my job to deal with it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So,
Okay, so do you sort of feel like do you feel like there's sort of a plan that's laid out for you? Sort of, when when somebody goes to comfort somebody, and for example, I do this all the time, there's a tendency to say it will get better. It will get better. But that's just somebody could say that's true, it will get better, or somebody could also say that's just wishful thinking.
yeah,
So part of the spiritual sense is saying, it will get better because God has a path laid out for you and things like that. So do you believe that that's a great way to calm you down, especially in times of stress?
um, I don't think that that's how I would speak with someone, um,
Mhm.
because I think, yeah, like people might have that viewpoint, what you just said, like you're just saying that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it can get better. It can always get better. Like the thing is like whatever we're given in life or things that happen to us that may be our fault, and there's things that happen that aren't our fault. Um, we have a choice to let it get the best of us, or we can use it as a stepping stone at some point and make us better. So when I say that we have like a path, I do think that we all have a purpose. And I think that the universe can use things for our highest good at all times, but it's definitely up to us personally to make good choices, and just
Yeah.
get out of victim mentality and like, let's go. Okay, I'm ready to start healing. I'm ready to get over this. I'm ready to feel better. So, I mean,
So,
definitely things can get worse. They can,
mhm,
but
yeah.
it's also, we do have a say. We do have some power over things.
So there's a sort of I know you just touched on it, but when you go through the problems of, I don't really have a purpose, right? Like I'm not sure what that purpose is. Maybe God has it set out for me, but at the same time, I really don't know if I have a purpose. What do you suggest for those people who sort of, you know, they don't if they since they don't really have an aim for their lives, they just sort of feel like they're wandering aimlessly and don't really have a place for them to go.
I think starting with following the things that genuinely make you happy,
Hmm.
knowing what that is, because there was a point in my life where I couldn't even answer that. What makes me happy? And I would
I
like
think
sit
we all
there
have
like
that. Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything. So
Mhm.
you start by getting to know yourself, and then you can move on from there, and um, just keep honing in on things. But you have to know yourself first, at least somewhat, to even reach that point of like feeling like what your purpose is.
So how did you personally get through it? Like, what was the thing that really guided you towards health and wellness?
So once I realized that I was like doing this stuff for fun,
Mhm,
consistently like researching things and like wanting to learn more about psychology or mental health, like just I'm doing things, I'm learning for fun, but it doesn't feel like work to me. Whereas like um I went to business school and I was like dying. Like
mhm.
it wasn't fun. So once I realized that, I'm like, okay, I'm like really interested in this, you know? But at the same time, I'm not gonna say that there hasn't been times where I've questioned it and I've questioned myself, but I always have to bring myself back to, okay, like what makes me happy? What do I like? And then, then I can feel more clear and focused in where I'm going. And I think like everyone doesn't just have like one tiny specific thing that works for them. It might be an array of things or it might evolve over time. Like you just keep discovering yourself and keep learning more.
I think it's really interesting because me and you have very similar stories, actually.
Really?
So I went into college trying to be a business major, um, and I got in as a business major, and right now I'm like kind of on the path to be a business major, but at the same time, I know that I'm not going to go into business just because I feel like it's very impersonal, and I think you
Yeah.
know it's very heartless, right? Like, how am I really helping somebody by being an accountant, for example, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not making the change that I want to by just being an accountant. So I actually started going into sort of a health and wellness track. This year I'm actually writing a book. It's called Breaking Your Bad Habits in 150 Pages.
Yeah.
And
I can't wait to see it.
yeah, thank you. Well, literally the goal, right, is the same goal as yours. I feel like there's so much more benefit that comes from benefit to me that comes from helping people and
Mhm.
helping people get out of their bad mindsets and all these pitfalls that we run into in society and sort of bring them out and making them feel better. I think that's something that's super important, and it's so much better than the business mentality of helping someone raise a company.
Yeah. I need to feel like the passion, the emotions and things. So I agree with you on that.
So was this something that when you actually came to it, it was something that you were naturally passionate about, or did it require some sort of extra effort to sort of move you towards it?
Extra effort. I don't think like people can't think that like that you have to do the extra effort. Like it has to be there because every part's not going to be fun. Actually I started with just a blog,
Mhm.
and even that process of trying to learn how to work a website and like me thinking like realizing wow, like if I write a blog all the time, like that's a lot, it's a lot of work, a lot of writing if I do this every single day. And I like to write, I do, but like that's not my favorite part about it. It's actually just like the conversation, like the helping, the mental health.
Yeah.
So like that's the part I love. I don't love writing as much as I love talking to people. I don't love making videos as much as I love talking to people. So there's definitely extra effort that has to go into it, and I just have to remind myself I am doing it. So
So do you find that when you're actually going through it, there's sort of a push against it, right? Like there's a push telling you to stop and a push telling you not to go through it.
yeah, there's times where it's doubt, and then there's times where it's just procrastination. So I mean, definitely like your book, I want to see it because I mean, that stuff like the habits and the procrastination can really get the best of you sometimes.
It really can. It really can. So what do you actually find is the best way of doing it? Do you actually believe that mindfulness is a great solution towards it to sort of really take in your feelings and not try to push them away?
Yes, I do. I think mindfulness is super important because that's helping me remember my why. Also,
Mhm.
I think routine helps me. Like if I don't start my morning with my prayer and meditation, I kind of feel off track, and
I
then
get
from
that
there, I'm
too.
like
Yeah.
rippling into off track all day long. So, yeah, those are two things that definitely help me a lot.
No, I completely agree. I find that whenever I have a morning where I'm not, in it from the start, whenever
Yeah,
I spend my first hour of my day on social media or reading emails or anything like that,
like throw the
I'm
whole day
very zoned
away.
out. It's
Yeah, same.
it's true. There's actually this book that I never actually read it, but I heard it on a podcast. It was called the Power of When. That's what it was called, The
Ooh,
Power of When. And it literally takes you through what our brain is like and how efficient we are throughout the day. And they actually say that the most effective that we are is during the first part of the day. So once you wake up, like that first like 3 hours, you
yeah.
are in that zone, like ready to go and things like that. And if you waste those first 3 hours, then the rest of your day is just going to sort of be a waste.
I feel that so strongly. I literally do. And it's so crazy to me when people are like, oh, I'm a night person. Like, how? Like, if I don't do something within that first, like, hour of my morning, I literally, my brain is starting to feel kind of foggy. Like, by like 2 p.m., I'm like, I'm dead.
Yeah,
you know?
it's true. Yeah, it's true. Do you find that if you have a morning routine and also a schedule, right? So if you wake up at the same time every day, that also helps?
Yeah. Schedules help. And I kind of struggle with that because I'm an early bird. I wake up early no matter what, but like sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 7:30, sometimes it's 8:30. But definitely I think um routine and schedule helps. Also, like I'll write down my list the night before. I like have to do that. Otherwise, if I'm trying to do it in the morning, I kind of get a little anxious. And then once I'm anxious, I'm like spacey. So,
Yeah, I completely agree. I 100% agree.
mhm.
So, okay, so I have one final question for you because this is something that's been on my mind. And as someone who's very into mindfulness, there's something about social media and something about phone games, and there's something about everything that has to do with screens that has a mindless element to it. So, you ever heard the phrase mindlessly scrolling? It's just
Mhm.
something that we naturally do. That once you get on, especially like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, like all those apps, you sort of mindlessly scroll and go through for like 2 hours, and then you don't even realize that you've been on it for 2 hours. Do you find that social media and mindfulness are two completely different things and you can't have both, or is there any sort of way to sort of bring them together and intersect them?
Um, there's a way to bring them together, and I don't know if that's even the right word, bring them together, or so much
Mhm.
as like um just compartmentalizing and like limiting the social media. It has to be limited because you don't even realize how much it's affecting you, I think. It's just
I
always in the
agree.
background, the way it's affecting you, the way it's making your attention span shorter, giving you more anxiety. And then like there's always room to like compare yourself to other people, or you're taking on all of this like stressful news. It's just like you think you're fine, but it's affecting you.
Yeah.
So you have to limit it. And there's like, you can use an app for that. Like there's help. I had an app on my phone at one point that was like telling me how many times I picked up my phone in a day. Um,
Mhm.
telling me like if I'm getting over like 20 minutes, I'll get a notification that I've been on my phone, and then tell me like how much I spent throughout the whole day on my phone. And it's like, wow, like I use my phone for work a lot, and I think everyone's like that now. So,
Yeah.
but you know, it was like I picked up my phone 71 times in one day, and that was like ridiculous to me. Once I saw that for the first time, I'm like, that's absurd. So it was like every 5 minutes I picked up my phone.
Yeah.
Um, and so
Which is
because a lot of
common.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people do it, and because a lot of people work on the internet and things like that, I just think you have to separate work, like I'm working, from the leisure things about social media and in your phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's probably the best way, and
Do
that's
you
kind of what
find
I
that
do. I even set up like the post timers and stuff, like where
Mhm.
I just like it posts at a specific time. I don't even have to look at it. I do what I can to keep myself off my phone. And when I'm doing work that doesn't require my phone, I just have to put it away.
Makes sense. Do you find that when you're actually doing your mindfulness work, that in the beginning and as you were going through it, did you find that you had this sort of like pull and draw towards social media and trying to, like you weren't as focused on the mindfulness because you felt like there was, there were people you had to talk to and there was things that you needed to do on your phone?
Yeah. And some days I still have days that are like worse than others depending on how much time I've spent on my phone. But absolutely, in the beginning it's even worse because you're so used to mindlessly picking up your phone. Like even just watching TV, like do you have to pick up your phone to watch TV? I do it sometimes, but it's like, why? What did I need to do that for? So yeah, as you're like meditating, you might be thinking like, oh, I need to do this, need to call this person, need to call my dentist, need to blah blah. Like
Yeah. Me
you
too.
have
Yeah.
to like, your mind's racing,
Yeah.
but like the phone has a part of that. It's a part of the reason why we're so like scatterbrained all the time. So um yeah, I definitely feel like in the beginning it was harder, but like
Hmm.
deep breaths helps, you know, just keep bringing
Yeah.
yourself back. You're going to keep getting distracted, but just keep coming back and then it'll happen less and less over time. And that's why mindfulness is a practice. You have to practice at it.
I completely agree. Well, I wanted to
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on. And first of all, for everybody who wants to follow you on social media, tell them how they can follow you, how they can get in touch with you, everything like that.
Sure. So on social media, my Instagram is Tori Warren Wellness. And also my website is toriwarren.com. You can message me on either of those platforms. And thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, of course. So you have a great day, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you, Nick.